Welcome to another episode of the Skadoo's Lounge. With me today is Mr. Dr. Plem, leader of the 508, and good friend, man. He always became a good friend over the years. And seen, I'll call us friends. Fuck you if you say otherwise. But here he is. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good, man, and yeah, I guess I'll call us friends. That'll work.
Yeah, somewhat.
Known you long enough.
It's been years. I was looking at a lot of those things. I was like, good God, 20, like, it's been years now, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, been probably about three.
Yeah, roller coaster ride of
Yeah.
years. Anyway, man, tell us a little about yourself. How old are you? Where you come from? What who is the
So
Mister behind the plim?
the Mister behind the doctor behind the plem. I am 35 years old. I live in Dallas, Texas. I currently work as a flight attendant for a new airline called Gridiron Air. I was hired when they were just starting out and helped them get through the certification process with the FAA, jumping through all those hoops and shit, doing a bunch of different drills and things like that to get our certifications. And we focus primarily on sports, mainly the NFL. Like we flew the Cardinals last year, and we're going to be expanding to other teams this coming year. But we also dabble in other sports, like we've done some college bowl games, did some March Madness. We're going to be doing some flying for the FIFA, the Club World Cup that's in the U.S. This summer.
Nice.
We're also doing like part of a Shakira tour this summer. So
Shakira.
yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, she won't be on our plane, but it's close as
What
I'll ever get. But
are
yeah,
you
so
like? Are you like uh what is it? Services or whatever? Like, do you like help the people or
so
steward or is
we
it called a steward?
well, it's a flight attendant.
Flight attendant. Okay, my
Yeah,
apologies. Well, I didn't know
but we
the
have
terminology. I would call
yeah.
you a stewardess.
No, not a steward, a sky hooker. That's the term.
Sky hooker.
Yeah, no, but we there's different roles that we work depending on what you're scheduled as, and because of my background in the restaurant industry, I'm often scheduled in the back galley because it's like the biggest one where you have to serve the majority of the plane out of there. So I still find myself somehow dealing with food and food prep and all that shit, but every once in a while they let me out in public to go actually shake hands and meet people, so that's always fun.
How big are these planes?
We right now we only fly 777s, so as big as they get.
Damn. And like, have you ever been worried, especially like recently with all of like the Boeing's fucking malfunctioning? Does it ever concern you?
Not really. That was when I took the job. Obviously I've had no experience in the aviation industry, and that was one thing that I was like, man, that's kind of nerve wracking. But once you do it so often, it's just you just get so used to flying. And when you think about, we've had these two crashes recently in the U.S., and it's been such a big deal about, oh my gosh, plane crashes. And then when you think about how many flights take off every day from every single airport across the country,
Oh yeah.
like it's just so unbelievable how safe it is to fly in a
Right.
plane. And
Right.
then on top of that, there was the crash in China where only two people survived, and it was two flight attendants, and one of them sits in the seat that I sit in. So the spot
That's
that I
always
sit in
comforting.
is statistically the safest place on a plane that you could be. So that's one plus of being in the back alley is, if something does happen, if somebody's going to survive, it's probably going to be me.
Ain't that a bitch? I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome that you know that at least, or at least have that comfort.
Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't come to that because, obviously then I'll be
Right.
out of a
Yeah.
job, but,
So yeah, so how does someone who so how did you get into the food industry? Like, have you always wanted to do that? Did you kind of just fall ass backwards into it? And then what was the deciding factor for you to transition from what you had been doing to the gridiron era?
So I worked as my first job ever was as a host at Chili's when I was 16, and I worked at Chili's throughout high school, up to becoming a server. And then when I went to college, there was a Chili's at college, so I transferred there and worked there throughout college. And then when I graduated, obviously I was looking for jobs, but for several reasons didn't end up taking anything. And shortly after I graduated, I got promoted to bartender at the Chili's I was at, and so the money I was making was better than a lot of entry level positions were offering. So it was just hard to leave, and I got comfortable. And then all of a sudden, I looked down, and I've been at Chili's for like 14, 15 years, and I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I can't be the guy that's a bartender forever. So I made the move into management, which it was all right. The pay wasn't terrible, but the hours were. And then having to deal with like expecting high school age kids to show up to work regularly was a pain in the ass. And yeah, the management, it just after 3 years of doing that, it just got to me. I could not do it anymore. I was so burnt out. My GM was an asshole. There was just always so much shit to deal with, and I was absolutely fucking miserable. And one of the reasons I stayed is because I had 4 weeks of paid vacation. But it's like, what's the point in having 4 weeks of paid vacation if you're miserable for the rest of the 48?
Oh, right.
So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yes, so I finally just there was just one day where the shift before had gone so bad, and my GM just left in the middle of it like he always does, and he was going to be gone all weekend. He was like, well, I know you're going to be understaffed the entire weekend, but just get through it. And the next day when I woke up, I was like, I can't fucking go back there. I cannot step foot in that restaurant. And so I called my DO, and I was just like, I quit, man. I can't do this shit. I had nothing lined up. Had no idea what I was going to do. And I was unemployed for like 2.5 months. I was looking at doing like solar panel sales, shit like that. And I was
Man.
like, that's going to be brutal. But my parents had been telling me for a while about their friend. I won't give his name on here, but he's high up in Gridiron, and he was involved with starting it up. And they said that eventually they're going to be looking for flight attendants. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, I'd love to do that, but I'm never going to fucking get it. But they ended up getting me an interview, and I had the interview. I figured, all right, let's see what happens. And I wasn't really expecting much, but got the call a couple weeks later that I'd gotten hired. And ever since then, it's just been an incredible ride. Like, going from being unemployed and nearly out of money to getting this job that pays us so extremely well to do something that I absolutely love. And as of right now, especially, we have so much time off because this is the downtime. So I'm really getting paid to just sit at home and do nothing. And I never thought I would have a job where I'm paid to sit at home and do nothing, but I would rather be out doing the job itself. So it's definitely been,
Right.
a
That's
huge
the American
turnaround.
dream.
Yeah, exactly. It's been great. So I couldn't be more grateful.
What'd you go to school for?
Telecommunication media. I wanted to do like I wanted to be on the creative side of advertising, like making
Yeah, yeah.
making commercials and stuff like that.
Why didn't you pursue anything in that?
I never did a internship. I think it was my biggest fuck up.
Oh yeah,
So once
100%.
I
That's
got
like
out,
all audio and shit, bro.
yeah. So once I got out, I had no connections in the industry, and I just had no idea where to even start to look for a job. And like I said, I just got promoted to bartender, and my mom had actually around that time she uh, had breast cancer, and it was
Yeah.
nothing too bad. But then she got sepsis from the breast cancer, which nearly killed her, and she was just in a really bad place. And so I was living at home at the time, and I had to be there to take care of her, so I couldn't really take another job at that point. Luckily, she's fine now, but so she's still kicking. But that was another part of the reason why I never really moved on. It's like by the time all that got settled, I was just comfortable in the bartending role, and being an idiot that goes out and gets drunk every single night and drinks away half his paycheck.
Ain't that the what is it, the double-edged sword of it all? Get good money, but you're spending it all on the
Yeah,
night
that's
before.
that's the service industry.
So, what are some other your hobbies that you fuck with? Do things outside of uh your job and gaming, obviously.
So I'd say the biggest one, and this is another mistake I've made, was I've gotten really into doing graphics. And the thing about graphics, like I absolutely love it, and I could spend hours doing it. But it's another thing that keeps me inside, just like on the computer. So I
Right.
really need to find something that gets me out of the apartment. Aside from going and seeing my niece and nephew and hanging out with them, and occasionally spending time with friends, because I'm at that age where everyone's either married or moved off, so there's not a whole lot of time to spend with friends. But I just spend it in Photoshop mostly. If I'm not playing Hell Let Loose or doing something 508 related, then I'm fucking around with something in Photoshop.
Hell yeah, you've gotten pretty good at the graphics over the years, that's for sure. I
Yeah,
still remember when everybody was still using chevrons and shit.
yeah. I like to every once in a while, I'll show somebody one of the first few profile pics I made, which is basically just the fucking rank and then like a sticker slapped on it and then their name written
Yeah,
on the bottom. It was like that was
yeah.
that was the extent of my graphics knowledge.
And you do now, we can kind of just slide it, but I do want to just put a pin in that real quick because we will be coming back to your gaming stuff. But since we're already talking about the graphics, you also have started doing graphics for like other instances on clans and stuff like that too, right? Like TPL, shit, fucking, or was it Summit or whatever it
Yeah,
was?
yeah. So
How'd
I
that
I
all come about?
well, so we'd been involved in Summit. We were in Summit One, and they had, I guess, Indra doing their graphics, and it was just kind of basic stuff. And throughout season one and season two, I would make like posters for our matches and stuff like that. And they were pretty popular among a lot of the guys in the server. And I would just make random things for other matches or other, like, jokes for other clans, just poking fun at them and shit. Um, and then once Indra stopped working with Summit, they needed somebody, and I was just like, hey, I can help out. And so starting on Summit 3, I was the graphics guy for them, and did Summit 3 and Summit 4, and then we got into TPL this last year, and I let Herc know that hey, if y'all need any help with graphics, I can help out. And I figured that they were like Summit, like they just had a guy that was doing graphics for them, but he adds me to this role, and there's like 15 people in a channel, all that are capable of doing graphics, and they're all fighting over projects and shit like that. And I never ended up making a single thing for TPL because I'm used to just being the guy. And it's like if they need something, they're gonna tell me. I don't have to go like check and be the first one to say, okay, I'm gonna make this, because I'm not gonna go check that channel every single day. So I didn't end up making anything for TPL. But it's funny seeing the two leagues, how they come out with stuff, and it's like they've got this entire team of graphics people, and then you got me over here by myself doing all this shit for Summit. And this Summit 5 has been the biggest beast of all of them, because we've gone all out on the theme this year, and so it's been a ton of work. And I haven't even started on stuff for like the scoreboards or standings, stuff like that, which is another whole beast in and of itself. So
Well, we'll have to get into that then if you don't mind, because I don't know much about that stuff. But what's the first thing that kind of like led you into gaming, man? Like what was the What was the like? Were you computer gaming, Sega,
Yeah.
Nintendo, fucking?
So as far as like overall, I don't. I guess gaming, it's like Nintendo 64 stuff like that. That was always a part of my family. Cousins having Segas and shit like that, and so that was always just kind of there. And we'd play it and have fun. It was never a big deal, but I think what really got me into it the first time, um, I got like a Game Informer magazine or something. I don't know what it was, but there was an ad in there for Medal of Honor Allied Assault, which was just about to be coming out, and it was like a picture of the D-Day storming the beaches and everything, and I was like, this looks insane. I have to try this, and my dad being a big World War II buff was all about checking it out too. So I got that when I was in, I guess, sixth grade, I think, and played the just the single player at first. Didn't even realize what that there is like a multiplayer gaming side of it. But eventually found it and kind of started getting into it, and ended up joining a clan and met a bunch of people that were really cool and fun to play with. And the guy that recruited me actually told me to lie about my age. I was 13 at the time. He told me to tell everybody I was 18, and somehow I got away with it.
Knocked
I don't know
by,
how
yeah.
they couldn't tell by like my fucking squeaky voice, but uh, I ended up getting like a leadership position, and then get promoted higher and promoted higher. But after a couple of years, I think it was 16 years old. I was leading a clan of about 200 people, all of various ages, but it was nothing like 508 is. It was nowhere near as serious. Like I don't think we ever played in a single like mash or anything. It was just a bunch of people that were you know teenagers to early 20s just fucking around on Medal of Honor. So it wasn't like a big competitive clan, but I thought it was funny how they all thought that I was some 21-year-old guy off in college, and I was really just this like 15-year-old kid sitting in his dad's computer room at home.
Fake it till you make it, man.
Exactly.
So that was your first, pretty much your. I mean, fuck, you were leading that clan then. So you kind of already had quite a bit of experience when you got to the 508.
So I wouldn't say that the only thing that I think impacted me, or that had an impact on 508, was the fact that when I was in high school doing that, that's where the whole idea that I have for ribbons in 508, like that's where that came from, because they had a website where they would make ribbons and upload them for all different events and stuff, and you could have them displayed on your profile. And I dabbled in making some of those ribbons, and so that was my first sort of foray into Photoshop way back then.
Mhm.
And I never got very good at it, but it was enough to get that exposure and understand what it is. And so then when we made 508 and we needed somebody to do graphics, I was like, hell, I'll give it a shot. I know a little bit. And so that's really the only reason I even volunteered, was because I had that experience. But aside from that, the leadership and all that, like there's nothing I think that I take from my time as the clan was called the Allied Defense TAD, and it was just a bunch of drama and immaturity, and what you would expect from a clan that's led by a 15, 16-year old. So I don't think that really prepared me too much for this role. Um, or else I don't think we would have lasted as long as we have if I took off that experience.
So would you say that was your first like first person shooter too, and that kind of just led you down the continuous path of first person shooters?
Definitely, yeah. I
To
played
Call
that.
Out Lose?
I played that game to the dirt, man, until there was nobody playing it anymore. I played it from, like I said, 13 until I was probably 20, 21. So, and in that time, I also played a little bit of like Counter Strike and Day of Defeat and different games here and there. Um, but then I kind of fell out of the like multiplayer scene for a while. Um, I did like a little bit of what was it called? Destiny. Um, Found like a good group of people to run with on there for a little while on the first Destiny. But aside from that, I really like through college and just out of college, I was just big into like single player games like The Witcher and you know Skyrim. Of course, when it came out, took up my entire life. But yeah, so I
Yeah.
didn't really play many multiplayer games seriously up until Hell Let Loose came around, and when I saw the videos for that, I was like, okay, I gotta give this a try. And then almost 3 years later, here we are.
Yeah, here we fucking are. That's a fact. So you get hell let loose, and how do you end up into the 101A and all that stuff? Like we've had Baron on. He talked about the start of the 508. We've had Koshi on. He talked about the start of the 508. Um, Obviously, Damos talked a little bit about it in the very first episode. The audio quality is not as good, but so why don't you tell us in your and what was how did you get there? What led you guys to the whole like being like the whole fallout and
Right.
the initial start of the 508?
So when I first started playing Hell Let Loose, like most people, obviously I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I can still vividly remember the first time I ever played. It was on Hurricane Forest, and there was just I couldn't see shit, and we were in like the woods on the side of some hill, and people just kept shooting me over and over, and I had no idea where they were coming from. I try and look at the map to see what's going on, and I have no idea. So I only played it once or twice, and then I was like, fuck this game. I'm like, this is stupid, and so I actually gave up. But then it started popping up on my YouTube feed over the next month or two, and I kept watching videos of it and watching videos of it. I was like, no, okay, this game is just, it looks too fucking cool. Like, I have to give this another try. So I get back into it, and, of course, I still have no idea what's going on. So I was like, I need to find somebody that does know what's going on so that they can teach me what the hell I'm doing. Because at that time, it was much better as far as you could join a game and just join a random squad, and there would be people communicating. But
Right, the community was definitely better
right, but it's not like there
to an
was a whole
extent.
bunch of people that were looking to teach a brand new guy how to play the game, you know. But so I jumped on, I think it was Reddit probably, and looked around, and I ended up seeing a post from some guy. I can't even remember who it was, but he was recruiting for the 101A, and so I joined in there. And off right off the bat, I liked the setup they had. It was new to me to be like to have. I had never had a Discord before, so I had to download it just for that. And then,
Agreed.
um, like the, I was used to the TAD things where we had like the website with everything, and I like having everything just on a Discord didn't really make sense to me, so that was tough to kind of figure out. But I did like the setup, the way they had things of like training the recruits and getting points and for promotions and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
the guys that I played with, I had a great time playing with. I met Baron, met obviously Damos. Koshi did. It was either my first or my last recruit train because you had to do 3 trainings as a recruit before you got promoted to private, and he did either my first one or my last one. I can't remember, but but then he like quit a couple days later. So I was only in 101A with him for like 5 days, and then he quit with the rest of the people that went off to start 21st. Um, and so that's when Damos ended up taking over. We were in Delta Squad, which Koshi was leading, but then when he left, Damos took over. And obviously Ace was there, and then another guy named Blue Devil and Grim, who were a part of starting a 508 with us. And I love playing with these guys, and like I'll never forget one of the times that I just like got absolutely hooked was playing with all of them on Purple Heart Lane, and Damos had us doing this flank like where you went all the way around, and we had to go through one of those like lakes that you can barely cross, and half of it you're drowning, but you have to jump, and so like all 5 of us are in a line, just like jumping up out of the water every 6 seconds, so we don't drown. And it was just we were laughing so hard the entire time and just having such a good time. And I was like, man, this is a completely different experience, and like from any other game I've ever played. And I absolutely loved it. And so I went all in at that point, and Damos talked to me a little bit about taking a leadership position within 101A, but I said no. Like I'm not here to you know take a leadership position. I'm just here to have a good time. I'll
Mhm.
get promoted all the way up as far as like the points take me, but I'm not going to take an NCO position or anything like that.
Right,
And
not filling out no forms.
yeah, yeah, I'm just here for a good time, not a long time, sort of thing. But
Mm.
the bad side about 101A was the leaders were so fucking toxic. Their names were the top guy was Tripwire. No, he was the second. It was Lieutenant Colonel Trip and Colonel Dog. Yeah, that's what it was. And so they were just. It was the kind of clan where you had to say yes sir, no sir. You had to call them by their
Yeah, yeah.
rank. Yeah, if you didn't say, if you didn't call them sir or captain, major, whatever the hell, then you'd have three people replying to you on the Discord, telling you what you did wrong, and two people on your DMs telling you fucked up. And then they would
Nice.
they would just like scan the Discord at times to like look for things to like yell at people about. They'd be going through different channels to tell people to, act professional and shit like that. They didn't allow us to post memes or GIFs. I'm like, dude, we're not fucking
Terrible.
professionals. Like, we're,
Yeah.
pay me and I'll act like a professional. But we never even played at an actual match or anything. We would do these joint operations where we all got together and, acted like we were a clan doing stuff. But I remember specifically like getting beat by blueberries a couple times and them getting all pissed off. Um, but eventually they out of nowhere changed the name from 101A to Task Force Saber Defense.
Yep, that's
And
exactly what it was. I was about to say, I was waiting to
yeah,
see if you remembered it because
it was tough.
Koshi told me the other day.
I'm surprised I still had it. Yeah, but yes. So I'm sure he told you everything. But from my point of view, they told us that the community had gotten together and voted that any clan that's over 100 members cannot take on the name of an actual unit, of a real life unit. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's like, what
Right.
community does this sort of thing? And like,
Mm.
I didn't know anybody from, or like, I knew 21st had started, and I knew they were a real life unit, and I figured they had
Mhm.
100 people. And so I think it was Koshi that I reached out to, and I was just like, hey, man, like, don't tell anybody I'm talking to you because I would fucking get in trouble if they knew I was talking to Koshi. But I was like, uh, are y'all still going by the 21st? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, what about this rule that blah blah blah? He's like, what the fuck are you even talking about? And I was like, yeah. So I knew it was bullshit, and I had suspected the reason was because everybody knew that Top and Trip played Arma and that they preferred playing Arma, and I was like, this isn't uh the community didn't make us do this. This is a rebrand for Arma. And about that time, they also split the Xbox and PlayStation units. They were already split before into separate units, but now they split it to where like we couldn't even see who was on the Xbox side. So if we wanted to, contact them, we weren't able to. So just this complete wall in between us, and we were like, "What the like? What are y'all doing? This is bullshit." And they were trying to tell us that this is what you've been wanting, your own PlayStation unit the whole time. And it's like, this is not what anybody asked for. And so finally, I was in this big argument with Dog in the Discord, and I called him out. I was like, this isn't, you know, a community forced change. This is a rebranding for Arma, and y'all expect us to just go along with this shit. Blah 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 blah. And I ended up quitting. Or well, before I could quit, he actually kicked me. I said I was going to quit, but then he kicked me. But we had actually met um, just the day before, me and Deimos and Ace and Baron, Grim, Blue Devil, and a guy. Well, no, Nisbet wasn't there. But so we had met and agreed that we were going to split off and start 508 because we just didn't like the way things were going. Like we knew that they were probably going to shift towards Arma and all that. But our Deimos was going up into the bush for a week, so he was going to have no cell service or anything, and he was supposed to be our leader of 508. And so we were like, all right, we'll wait a week, and then when he gets back, we'll do it. I sort of fucked everything up by starting that argument the next day, and I got kicked. And then 3 hours later, they all of a sudden kick everybody that plays PlayStation without any like warning or anything. They just kicked all the PlayStation guys out because Arma wasn't on PlayStation at that point. They
Right.
just came out and said, "All right, this is an Arma clan now. If you don't play Arma, get out." And so we were left without a clan and without Deimos, and so someone had to start the server, and so I started the server up, and we just grabbed everybody that we could that was get kicked out of 101A, and we're kind of just on a holding pattern. We're like, all right, we're just going to get the basics going until Deimos gets back, and then we'll really get this thing started with recruiting and all that. And so that was on the server opened up on July 4th of 2022. So yeah, we'll be in just about 2 months here. We'll be at 3 years, and yeah, that's the
Feels a
story
lot
of.
longer than that, to be honest.
I know. I always have to correct myself because it feels like four, but we really are only at three. But in this
Mhm.
community, 3 is a long time.
Yeah, oh yeah. And see, that's something I was going to bring up too, the community factor. So it's funny when you hear like all the guys that I've had on here from the 508. It's funny because no one's really said 508 clan. It's always the community. And do you think that that's got to be like there's just like that evolution that happens? Some clans turn into communities and others just remain kind of like how what were they, the tap or whatever the fuck that the
Tad, yeah,
tad, sorry, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's really what are you focused on? If you're just focused on playing the game and being good at the game, that's what a clan is. And we are a clan, but first and foremost, we're a community because it's not just about the game. It's about the fact that the reason people play this game is to, you know, have fun. Everybody's got their own shit going on. They've got, their own jobs. They've got wives, kids, or whatever they have going on. They've got stress in their life. And some people are lucky just to sit down for, an hour or two a week and get to play this game. And when they do, like, just because they can only play for an hour or two doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have an awesome group of people to play this game with, because this game is not as fun when you just have to jump in with a bunch of blueberries that don't communicate. And so, really, starting out for 508, all we wanted was a place that we could bring people that, were like minded individuals, good people, not people that were toxic assholes, stuff like that. It was if I didn't like playing with somebody, if I didn't want them in my squad, and if they were to join my squad, I'd be like, oh shit, I don't want to play with this guy. Why would I put other people through that? So
Right,
we
right.
we, we don't want to recruit those kind of people. Um, Really, we just want to recruit people that we can have fun with because we're all just trying to have a good time. And in the beginning, comp wasn't even a thought. It
Right,
was
right.
just about building a community that we could have a good time with. And I think because we spent the first 6 months or so, hammering that out and figuring out how that's going to work and how we're going to accomplish that before we ever even considered, being competitive, I think that was why we were able to build a foundation that has lasted as long as it has. Because, obviously there are people that are going to join here and maybe not see the success right away that they want to see, and they'll get frustrated and they just want to go win. And if you just want to win now, you can go join somewhere else that's going to win with or without you, and you can go win there. you know but I always look back on when we beat BZRK in Summit 3 to make Summit for the first time. That was a big upset. We'd already beat 9 May, which was a huge upset.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget beating BZRK, standing in that trench on whatever the hill point on the north side is. I was standing there next to Ace as we take the last point, with just a couple minutes left to win the game, or not the last point, the midpoint, with a couple minutes left to win the game, and standing there next to Ace, who I built this community with, from day one, and to see us come that far and to do all this together, like that was just the coolest fucking moment. And
Oh, yeah.
so what I can tell people is, winning is one thing, but when you win with a group of people that you've been doing this with forever, and you've been through the valleys, you've been through, the low points, and you've suffered through all the horrible losses, and people have counted you out and thought you're done. When you do get through those times and you start actually getting those wins, there is no better feeling. And that's I think what's kept so many people here, is because not only do we have the great community that really we care more about each other than we do about getting wins, but they know that if we just keep doing our thing, we're going to get enough people that appreciate 508 for what it is, that can also play competitively, to where those wins are going to start coming. And when they do, it's going to be so much sweeter than somebody that just went and joined another clan that was already successful, to get wins.
Yeah, I feel that. There's been quite a few of those people.
Oh yeah.
And I never understood that either. Why, if you're not gonna even be, I mean, I understand that. I guess you still get the ring, whatever the fuck,
Right.
because when championship they even give the janitors the ring. But yeah, I agree. Definitely working for it's definitely better. Being one of the top guys in the group and stuff like that, you've seen obviously a lot of the people break off or splits and all this other stuff. How have you guys been able to maintain everything?
Well, to be
I mean, fuck.
honest,
When I
go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead. You want me to go? I was gonna
Yeah,
say
go
it
ahead.
doesn't matter anyway.
No,
All
I
I was
want
gonna
to.
say was I remember like when all of that shit first went down, like with the SOBs and stuff. It was like, what the fuck? But then like once all that stuff kept going, then you guys like had the first split off. Then you guys had like Briz and all those guys go out to fucking
Right.
wherever they went to. Like so. I mean, I'm just saying, like, so you had a lot of guys that a lot of the people that made not made, sorry, a lot of the guys that helped oil, I guess, the or helped grease the wheel in the 508 that kept it. When everybody keeps leaving, how do you guys maintain the uh the camaraderie, like the keeping it going shit without kind of just dying off?
Right. Yeah. So it.
I mean, we see it all over the place. You know what I mean? You've seen several. I mean, fuck, how many discords have split and failed, or you
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean?
I
Like
mean, there's a clans are a
yeah.
dime a dozen that pop up and then fail, or split off and then fail, or something. So it happens all the time. And it wasn't easy for us to get through those times, and there was a few moments there where we almost didn't, to be perfectly honest. Obviously the first one was the SOB split, and it started small, losing just a couple people, and then grew into something a lot bigger than that. And it was a really frustrating situation for me in particular, because I had seen all of these guys as friends of mine. I considered each and every one of them my friends. And I always have an open door policy. I'm always practically begging people, like, look, if there's an issue, please come tell me. Like, just be honest with me. And, give me a chance to make it right, or, to fix it, or to explain to you why we do things a certain way. Because, not everything that gets brought to me is going to be something that I can change or fix. Um, but none of them ever came to me with anything. And so I had no idea that there was any sort of rumblings or people upset. And then as soon as they leave, then they just start with all this, well, there's so many problems with 508 that you should know about, and why haven't you done this? Why have you done that? And then even though I was asking, okay, well, what are the problems? They still wouldn't tell me anything, solid like that I could actually work with. So they still wouldn't tell me what the issues were that caused them to leave. So
Right.
and it was just really frustrating to me because I felt like we had really built something here that was different. Um,
You
you know, f-
did.
Focusing on the community aspect, and I was like, we had gone 2 years without any split offs, and that was longer than any other clan as far as I'm aware of. They all have people split off, and we hadn't. And I felt like that was because we had done such a good job of, you know, bringing in people that felt the same way, and to find out that someone that I was the closest with
Bro,
didn't
don't
didn't
even get me started.
yeah. But we don't have to go too deep into that, but it really sucked that it was like, if this person doesn't value it, who does? You know, that's where I was feeling after it happened. I was like, if he can decide that it's not important and will split off and go do their own thing, like does what we've done here matter to anybody? You know, and the only reason I think I kept going is because literally the day before we had our 2 year anniversary, and so many people had told me how much that 508 means to them. And so I think if we hadn't have had that and hadn't have had all those people reaching out to me just to say thank you for this amazing community, I think I don't know that I would have fought as hard as I did to keep going. But
Hmm.
I knew that there were those people out there that really did feel strongly about this place and that really wanted to see it continue and see it succeed. And so we just, through the first split, we just decided, okay, we're just gonna keep our head down, keep working. Um, Unfortunately, we had someone take advantage of that time and climb the ranks up to squad lead, who ended up just being a massive tumor, and they were the source of 99% of our problems. They were the reason we lost guys like Briz and Ptolemy and Jin and Griozny. And, you know, to this day, like, losing those guys, I think, hurt the most because all of them had been here for so fucking long, and they were like, they
Oh
were the
yeah.
guys that were, so good at the game that was like, oh, they make us, they put us on the map. And it was just, they were always there. Every time you look up, you see Briz in game. You always see Griozny in game. And, even though Ptolemy and I, when he was here, Ptolemy and I didn't get along all that well. But it's funny now, after the fact, we get along great. And so it just sucks to see, those guys, to lose those guys specifically because of this
One
one
person.
fucking person who couldn't just not cause drama. Um, And yeah, so he kept causing drama, and we kept losing people, and it was just making it miserable. It was like, because every day it was something. And it was just putting out fires left and right. And finally, I got to the point where I was like, I can't deal with this one more time because I'm going to quit. It's
Right.
either going to be him or it's going to be me. Like, one of us is going to go, and it's not going to be me. And so when I woke up one day
All
and he
right.
was
Yeah.
starting more drama, and I got a message from Steppen saying, "This is it, man. I can't do this anymore. I'm done." To see that he cost us another fucking great member who's been here from day one, I was like,
Top guy. Yeah.
that's it. I immediately went into the server settings. I banned his ass, and I was like,
Mhm.
I didn't say a word to him, and I made the post telling everybody else, what's happened, why I did it, and I knew it was gonna, cause a fuss. I knew there were gonna be some people that were gonna get mad and leave. I didn't care because I couldn't do one more second with that guy completely ruining the experience for everyone. And
Right.
to this day, it was the absolute best decision I've made as the leader of 508 because
Yeah. Him.
it just completely cleaned the slate. It was like having him gone. There was no more drama. It was like, now, okay, now we can get to work. And
Yeah.
at first we were thinking, okay, what are we going to do as far as numbers wise? Because obviously we did lose more people. We really didn't even have enough to field 50 at this point. And so, you know, we were talking about around that time about potentially looking for a merge. And, we
Oh yeah,
thought
yeah. I
about,
remember that.
yeah, we thought about maybe merging with BZRK, maybe merging with 22nd. And we hadn't decided who yet, but, we did decide finally. We're like, okay, this is what we're going to do, blah blah blah. And we had a meeting, and literally at the end it was like, okay, well, this is, you know as far as 508 as the competitive clan goes, like, this is it, it's done. We're going to seek a merge starting tomorrow. The next day I wake up and I hear that a certain someone had quit SOB. And so I thought, okay, maybe they're going to start, sending some people back here. And I got a message from, I believe it's Honorous, about 17th coming back and joining us. The EU guys had left under
Uh-huh.
good circumstances, respectful circumstances, and they had started 17th, but it wasn't working out. And so it was literally like at 0 hour, they saved us. They came back, and we were all of a sudden able to field 50 again. It was like, okay, maybe we can keep this thing going. And that's when it really just started to build momentum. And like I said, because that one person was gone, now everybody was on the same page. Everybody's working for a common goal. We're all getting along. There's no more arguing. There's no more drama, and it just got to be fun again. And that's what we were missing for so long. Ever since July 5th of 2024, it had just been drama and
Uh-huh.
bullshit nonstop. And it was ruining the fun for everyone involved. And once we, got those guys back in and got rid of that one person, everything completely changed. And since then, we've just been doing our thing, and we've had some more people come in from other clans. We got some great guys in from 34th and 4AD, so we're growing and getting more competitive guys in. And it just really, I think it was the to answer your question in a very long way. Um, I think the reason we were able to get through all of that was because of the community that we had built. People started to value it from the outside. 17th
Mhm.
missed what they had. They wanted to come back and do it with us again because it wasn't working out. So we got them back in. Guys like that had left 4AD, they had had a bad experience merging with BZRK, and it wasn't fun, and they missed the community, and they missed having fun, and so they just wanted to get that again. And so that's why they came and joined us. And same with some of the guys from 34th. You know, Basic Noodles had told them all about how great the community is and everything, and that was a big reason why they came here. So people starting to see that it's not just about the comp side of things. It is about having fun. Um, I think that played a big part in us getting a lot of people to come back, and then a lot of new people to join, and that allowed us to weather the storm and keep things going. And like I said, it was close there at times to where we wouldn't have kept going. There were times that we thought that it's about time to hang it up, but just through miracles, really is the only way that things happen at the right time is what kept us going.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because I remember the thing that pissed me the fuck off the most about I don't even give a shit. It's a the thing that pissed me off about Adrenaline, bro, was the fact that he caused all that shit originally with the 508, breaks off, starts the SOB, puts all these motherfuckers in bad positions, and then once the whole this and this comes out, and then he quits the SOB. I'm like, bro, what the fuck, like. Oh, and then here's the thing. So when he leaves, bro, I do my thing there for a while longer. and all the conversations that are being had, it's just like this, it's just like that. I'm like, you guys realize that if this wouldn't have happened originally, all these motherfuckers would be in the devils, right? Like they like everyone, anything that anybody's bitching about would have been solved had they just been with us over here. You know what I mean? Originally.
Right.
So I remember I had some shit going on, so that I was off for like a week or two, 3 weeks, whatever. I get back on. Resnal's been kicked, banned. A couple other guys have been kicked and banned. So I hit Resnal up. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? He gives me the scoop. And I'm like, no, I can't. No, no, no. So I get back on there into the Discord with those guys. I say, yo, what the fuck's going on? This is how I feel about the shit. And then they just did the same shit that they did when they left the 508, and then the same thing that the guys did that, from just a lot of hate. And I'm like, yo, this ain't right. Fuck y'all type shit. And I literally, I was like, you guys are like, I came to back you guys up. And then, you were right, essentially. Everybody was right, but I just had to, you know what I mean? I had already played
Yeah.
it out to where it was like, I had to do what I had to do. But
I
um,
think, a
I
big
met some
part of it,
things right after that.
is that I think that a lot of people don't understand how much goes into leading a clan. Like all everybody really thinks about is what they think that we should do and what they think is the right decision.
Right.
And there's 200 other people that have their own opinions of how things should go. Some of them agree with you, some of them don't. The trick is making all of them happy. You're never going to make them all completely happy. It's going in a direction that they can all get behind. Whether it's begrudgingly or gung ho. And there's a lot of work and a lot of politics that goes into it, and a lot of relationship building, and it takes time. And it's not a quick, there is no quick like, okay, we're going to start being competitive now. And it's a really
I
easy
still
thing to
remember the vote.
say that we can be competitive, but it's a lot harder to do than just voting on it. And so I think that a lot of those guys that thought that I had done such a terrible job got put into a position where they thought they knew all the answers, and turns out it wasn't as easy as they thought. And so that's what really led to the SOB having problems, and then a lot of people that had gone to SOB from 508 quitting SOB, and unfortunately not all of them have come back, but a lot of them have. And I will say one thing I really respect was Vulcan when he came back. I talked to him for a while, and at one point, when he ended up leaving again, he left because he felt like things just felt different, and he was like, I don't blame y'all at all. He said that I only have myself to blame. We had a great thing going here, and we screwed it up. And so, to hear him say that, because during the whole split and all that, me and him were butting heads quite a bit. But for him to be able to come back and for us to be able to reconcile and get on the same page again, and it sucks that he left. I understand why he did, but to hear that was just sort of a validation that I had needed for a while, was to hear that from someone that was involved over there with the start of it, because the other three have me blocked and I can't communicate with them even if I wanted to. But so that was, I do give him a lot of props, because that was not an easy thing to say, I'm sure. Um, and even if they won't say it, I do think the rest probably realize it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really talk to Lightner anymore type shit, but me and Rap have always had and that's, dude, like I said, like you weren't the only one that took like knife to the heart type shit, bro. That was a hard time for me too. Like, uh, that was, but what can you do
Yeah.
type shit. But like to get what Vulcan said, like I get what he said, but at the same time, like shit's different now. But if I would have been able to be in that mindset of like I remember a conversation I had with you actually, bro, right before I was getting ready to leave, and I didn't have no plans to leave at this point. We were talking about this and that, and you said not all you like you said something about people come and go type shit, but it's like reestablishing the relationships type
Right.
shit, like rebuilding, not rebuilding the bridges, but like new people come in, blah 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 blah. You gotta like type shit. And if I would have thought about it like that back then I probably would have never left and all that other shit, history. But that's that's what like when I decided to come back when I messaged Fink, I was like, well, like that was stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like it should have never there should have never been a split anyway. That was so
Right.
fucking stupid.
Yeah, and it was something that, I think it could have been solved with just one conversation and some honesty, you know.
You don't know that.
Um,
But then you get on Discord one day, motherfuckers like I'm gone, bam, and then six,
yeah,
seven, eight, nine, seven, like half of Baker leaves and like, yo, what the fuck happened,
yeah,
bro? Nobody was I didn't know shit was going on either. I'm looking around like, yo, what the fuck?
yeah. And to your point, I've talked to many people throughout the time here, guys that have been here for a while, and start feeling like all my friends have, especially around that time, all my friends have left. I don't really have any friends here anymore. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, look, there's no one that's been here longer than I have. I started the server. I was step
Mm-mm.
one, okay? And so if I can still be here and still have friends, there's no reason that anybody else can't. And the reason that I'm able to still be here and still have friends and have relationships is because I play the game.
Mm.
And that's the number one thing about, whether it's one of the guys that's coming in from one of the other clans that's looking to, get to find that community again, or if it's someone who's been here for a while and has sort of drifted out of things and feels like they don't belong anymore. There is a very easy fix for that, and that's playing the game. If you play the game as much as you can, you're going to meet new people, you're going to start to get to know people, and you're going to realize like the people we bring in are still good people. 508 is still 508. The names might be different, people are going to come and they're going to go, but the community attracts the right kind of people. And as long as you give those people a chance, you're going to find people that you enjoy playing the game with. And you're going to find people that make it feel like this is your home, you know? And so that's really just whenever I hear that from someone that they feel like they don't, you know, they don't fit in anymore or don't belong, like that's really just, I can tell you every single time it's because that person hasn't been around and hasn't been playing. That's always,
See,
the common denominator.
the only thing I disagree with on that part, man, is like I think that a lot of the guys from dude, I remember when I first came in, it was all squad based. So like Kaze was the guy, Kaze was Charlie squad lead, and fuck if who was it? Roy, Roy was my team lead. You know what
God,
I mean?
Roy.
So I remember coming from that time, man, and it's like you didn't spend a whole lot of time. I mean, like, yeah, you got as many people as you could on a Friday or Saturday or whatever, whatever. I mean, I remember the first time I called off work to play with the guys, all night type shit.
Right.
Like, I remember that stuff. But then, you get to that point where it's like, then everybody's going comp. Okay, well then, Kaze got moved up, and then Eastwood, and everybody was getting moved up, et cetera, et cetera. I can't remember who took over. I think was it Stoner? Stoner might have took over Charlie at that point. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
But
think so.
regardless, that's not important. Well, what is important is I'm just saying, like, you spend so much time with a certain group of people, like that certain, Baker squad, or, Abel and Baker spend a lot of time together because we always had Abel, Baker, Charlie, Easy,
Right.
whatever. So, like, and then all those people that you spent all those hours with are now gone.
Yeah, it's not easy,
And it's like,
especially when
yeah,
it
it's
all
like, I'm,
happens quick like that. Yeah, like
yeah, oh,
that's
yeah.
tough, you know. And
And it's like, no matter how much you play, the getting to play, like, you feel like when you're in the game, it's just like, it's like, it's weird, bro. I had never felt that until that shit happened. That was a really weird feeling. I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, yo, this is awkward.
yeah, and
But,
to your point, it might be different for me because I've never been in a squad. So,
right, you've been with
everyone
everybody
is
the
my
whole time.
squad. Um,
Hmm.
but that's why I think that's one of the reasons why we've sort of drifted away from focusing mainly on squad trainings as far as just focusing on trainings because we want people to
Hmm.
build those relationships across squads
Right,
because
right.
you know in the event that something like that happens, if half of a squad leaves, then the people that are left are like, well, shit, now I don't know anybody. And so it is harder to start over when you've just lost everybody in like a very short amount of time. That's not an easy thing to do. You're right.
Hmm.
And so, but the fact if you're able to, branch out and play with people from other squads and get to know people, around the unit, that it makes it so much easier. And yeah, so I think that's definitely a big part of it. And not to downplay what what happened because that was the there's times when it's like shit changes quick and people or a lot of people leave in a very short amount of time. So yeah, there's times where it's easier said than done for sure.
How do you maintain activity? Like, how do you get privates and and PFCs and stuff like that to continue going? Because I feel like now is the most time I've ever seen that many corporals and ever. Like, it seems like there's been that many people that have risen up in the
Yeah.
ranks.
Um.
And it's definitely not been squad trainings type shit. So
Right.
it's like, you know.
Um. So the biggest thing for me is, and part of me wishes that I could still be like at the squad lead level, or when I started, I was like a platoon sergeant. Um.
Hmm.
Because it really is. I won't say it's easy, but like squad leads are the most important position because they can have an immediate and massive impact on a new member's activity. Some guys are going to
Facts.
join and they're not going to be active. It's no matter what the fuck you do, they're not going to respond. They're not going to come play or anything, and they're going to end up getting removed. That's going to happen. But there are those guys that are just looking for people to play the game with, that are wanting to feel like they belong to a community. And so if they join and they get put into a squad, and there's a squad leader, and I know we say like the ranks don't mean anything, but whether you have a rank or not, if you're the squad leader, like you've been here, you're a veteran guy, you know what's going on, you know people in the clan, you're a person that has pull. If you get placed in that squad and that person never gives you the time of day, doesn't ever message you to say welcome, doesn't ever invite you to come play, doesn't really care if you have a squad to be in when everyone's playing together, if like they let all their
Yeah.
friends join their lock squad and then you're playing by yourself, you're not going to feel like you belong to this community. But, if you join in and that person's messaging you individually to welcome you in, and that person is, asking you, hey, when do you like to play? When are you on the most? Or hey, we've got this event going on later. You should come. If they're trying to get you involved and get you to come to stuff, and you build that connection with them, like it makes it so much easier for them to show up because they have that connection with one person, and then
Hmm.
that one connection can branch off to start to meet new people. And the biggest thing, the easiest way to do this is to get people involved and to meet people was the rally comps thing. And for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was, but it was an idea of some member who he was like a private or a PFC. He was brand new, had just joined, and came to me with this idea about because we had usually used contingency comms or alternate like it was just we had all these random channels. And he was like, it would be nice to have one channel that I know everyone's going to be in all the time, like that I could just go look at that channel and like that's where the game is going to be. And so we took that and I immediately made rally comms, and that started to be the base for night patrol and first watch and stuff like that. And so giving a way for new people to see, like, okay, if they know to look at rally comms when they get on, they can see that we have people playing. And because rally comms is has people in it, all the time, and
Yeah.
it's
That
such an
still seems to be one of the biggest problems. I don't understand why.
what do you mean?
Like
People
you'll
like
hear
actually
people
getting
like
in it?
so Yeah, so like you'll see him requesting backup. Oh,
Oh
hopping
yeah,
on, be on, blah, blah. And then like maybe like you give it 20, 25, 30 minutes, whatever, whatever. You're like, out here, hey man, joining on you now. And then you realize, oh, well, there's actually two different squads going on. One's in fucking WRTB server, the other one's
right.
in 504 server. It's like none
Yeah,
of you are in rally comms though. What the fuck is going on here?
there's definitely still some, and I will say up until like a couple weeks ago, third platoon never really used it because I guess we never when they came back it had already been established and it was something we were doing and they just never even really knew about it and so they weren't using it at all and but I've we've talked to them and like hey this is why we use it, this is what it's for, blah blah blah, and so they've started to get more into it and I know it's a if it's not something that you're used to doing then it's hard to kind of get into, but they've definitely been doing a better job of it. So but
I mean,
and
fuck, they
but
got
when I
hacks, man.
see yeah Hackstar's always in there. Um, it is frustrating when I'll see like several NCOs in a game together and none of them are in rally comms
Mm-hmm.
because and it does happen occasionally and it's like guys we've got to be in there because
Mm-hmm.
we tell people all the time this is where you look to find out that there's a game going on and I know that gold coin is always going to be in there, harmless is always going to be in there. There's a lot of guys that do a really good job of getting in there and not just being in there but paying attention to when other people join
Yeah,
to say
J-Mac does a good
hey
job of that.
yeah JMax another good one, saying hey this is the server we're in, blah blah blah, and it works when we do it, and it
Oh yeah.
gives it's like I said it's so much easier for new people to see like okay there's 10 people playing right now, I'm going to go join them rather than on requesting backup seeing at here okay I'll join on you, I don't have any of these guys added, how do I join on them, where are they at, it's not easy that way. And so really the rally comms and doing stuff like the night patrol and the first watch, just encouraging people to play together all the time on every day, that's what gets the activity up. Um, Trainings and stuff, that those are important for getting better at the game, and then obviously casual events are important for just giving everybody something fun to do. But you've got to have that everyday thing. You've got to have a way for guys to be involved, and so by making that a priority, I think it helps a whole lot. And so, are there some people that I wish would put a little bit more effort into it? Yes, but I think
Right, right. Yeah.
on the whole, it's rare that I'll get on and find out there's a group playing, but there's no one in rally comps. It happens every once in a while, but for the most part, they might not all be in there, but as long as there's a decent amount and someone's paying attention, then it works.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree. I just think sometimes it's like, you hop on, you see one guy in rally comms, and it's like, oh yeah, fuck it, I'll join on it just to spice things up and to see if I can get more people, and then you end up 10, 12, 15 people in that motherfucker.
Yeah.
But it is
Um,
cool though. I think that having the European guys back is awesome because you'll see people on all day now. Like you've got Temp on in the morning, you've got Hackster fucking talking shit all day. You've got excuse me. You got third platoon doing their thing, and then you got native watch, so it's cool. I enjoy it. I think that you guys have done a really good job.
yeah, I mean, and it also just helps to recruit people that are active, because like I said, sometimes you'll recruit guys that they'll join and they'll never play a single game with you. It's a crapshoot.
You
So,
guys still do posts and shit?
like on Facebook and all that,
Yeah, yeah. Like recruitment drives, quote
not
unquote.
that I'm aware of. I know, like I've stopped doing it on Reddit. I don't think Barons do it on Facebook, just because we want to. We're at the point where we're not desperate for members.
Right.
We want to make sure that we're not just bringing in guys to give boot camp extra work. We want to be bringing in guys that we're confident are going to get through that process and are
More
going to,
organically.
yeah, and they're going to actually be involved, and that they're, we don't have like a level requirement. You don't have to be level 50 to join or whatever, but we are looking to bring in people that know what they're doing for the most part. We're fine bringing in guys that are lower level that we need to teach them what to do. If they play with us and they're fun to be around, absolutely. I have no problem bringing in a level 20 or something like that. But our server right now is minimum level 40 requirement, and it's gonna go up to 50 here pretty soon. So it does suck to bring in someone and be like, by the way, you're not allowed to play on our server. Um, but that's just a part of we are trying to shift to be able to be more competitive, and so we're not going to exclude anybody from joining. Anybody that wants to be a part of this community is welcome to be a part of this community. But we're not
How
going to
much does it
be.
cost to start a server?
Um, I'd have to. I don't remember off the. So I know I did just try to start one on Conzer, but they didn't have their Bifrost isn't set up yet, which makes it kind of difficult to run. It was going to be $187 for 3 months. Um, but right now on G Portal, G Portal's a little more expensive, and then I'm paying for it month to month right now because we might be
Right. Like how?
switching.
What do you mean switching?
So first of all, if we stay with G Portal, we're going to move from a central server to an East Coast server, um, because
Thank God. No,
yeah,
just kidding.
it's got to be worse for me. Like I love having our
Right,
Dallas
better for me.
located server, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
will be better for the EU guys, and for comp stuff. Whenever we do matches, we need to have a USE server. Um, we've been considering switching over to Conzer, but
Why?
honestly, well, because for a while G Portal was, the servers weren't running great. Um, but lately I feel like I haven't been having any issues on them, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's been doing fine. The only reason we would switch to Conzer is a little bit cheaper, but like I said, right now they don't have their Bifrost setup, which is the way to basically manage the server easily. So it's a whole another mountain to have to climb to get your server established. So once they come out with that, we might look at it, but um, I wouldn't be surprised if we just stick with G Portal and move to the East Coast.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what are you guys doing? TPL and Summit this year? Sorry, I thought I was about to spill my drink. My apology.
It's all good. Now, we're not doing Summit. Summit has become like the Champions League to TPL's Premier League. Um, because TPL has it sorted into divisions by skills, so you should be playing teams that are closer to your level and make it more competitive. Whereas Summit is like all of the top tier teams, and you just play whoever. So it is a fucking grind, and I don't think that we're quite to the point to be ready for Summit. Um, there is another
Smart
league,
move.
yeah, there is another league called TWL that we are looking into, but they don't play Summit rules. So it's full arty. You can destroy nodes, you can destroy or kill arty, and moving over to this new strategy that we've been talking about and focusing on, that's not in the plan, and so we would have to completely adjust this strategy to make it work for WWL, which runs right up until TPL starts again. And so then we'd have to switch it back for TPL without having
Right.
any time to really adjust it. So it's just, um, it's a little frustrating that they're choosing to do it that way. So I don't know that we're going to be involved in that, but at the very least we will be doing we'll be getting back into the Thursday night scrims on the scrim circuit, and then obviously scheduling as many weekend friendlies as we can to really just be focused on this new strategy, because it's not going to be an easy one to implement. It's going to take a lot of work. So I think if we are
Yeah.
able to take a couple months to just train on it, get into matches, and work out the kinks, That way, when TPL comes back around, we're like fully set and ready to go, and can have a better outing, hopefully.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues you guys had last season was simply just so many people coming and going. You know what I'm saying? On top of filling people, like filling roster spots.
Right. Yeah.
People saying they were going to be there, not coming, shit like that.
Yeah, and I will say, with TPL this year, I thought our first two matches went incredibly well. TFMC is a good team, and we basically fought over the midpoint for what, 70, 80 minutes, pretty much. And then they ended up taking our fourth point, and then in the last, they ended up capping the fifth point in the last minute because we had gone all in to do a double cap, which I'd rather go all in and know we lost 5-0 trying than lose 4-1 just trying to take the 4-1. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we played
Rolling over.
21st, right? And then we played 21st, and lost that one 3-2, and it was neck and neck the entire time. So it was another really good game. And this is our first foray into comp since the split and everything. So we had no idea really what to expect. Um, and then we came up against 101A, which in the past 101A was just a team that you could walk over no problem. And boy, have they've gotten a lot better somehow. Those guys, they don't miss. Um, and
They sure
they,
don't. They sure know how to find that head too.
yep, yeah. So they beat us pretty handedly twice, and so it sucked to have to go against them twice in a row. And the other thing was with Spam bailing out and our division already being a team less than a couple of the other divisions. It just seemed like we barely played anything. It's like we had
Hmm.
2 matches, and then we had a month off, and then we got our ass kicked by 101A twice. So it's just TPL sort of left something to be desired this year. Um, and hopefully, it's not their fault that teams collapse. Like that shit does happen. But hopefully, for the next iteration, we've got that figured out a little bit more, and also hopefully they've got us in a division that's accurate, because one thing that surprised me was they never even approached me about what division we should be in. When we registered, um, their plan was to have 3 divisions of 49 versus 49, and then below that, Division 4 on was going to be less than that. So when I registered, I said, something about being in Division 3, and I guess they just took me at my word and put us in Division 3, because they
Yeah.
never spoke to me about, where do you feel like y'all are at? What are the recent matches you've played? Blah blah blah. If they had mentioned it to me at all, I would have, and I'd known there was a Division 4. I'd say, hey, we're probably more of a Division 4 team, um, because we're just coming out of a rebuild. But yeah, they didn't listen to that at all, and I guess they just looked at our Summit 4 performance and went off of that.
I mean, I guess that kind of, I don't know. It can't necessarily make you feel bad, I guess, if they put you in a top division like that.
But, I mean, it's flattering, but I would rather be in a division that we can actually.
Could compete in.
And that being said, like we did compete. We played well against TFMC. We played well against 21st. I think
Right, but
going
I
back
mean,
up
like,
against those
come
guys, I
on.
think we could win either of those matches. But yeah,
Really?
we were yeah, I think now, because we've gained a lot of really good guys since we played those matches. There was a month-long break between those matches and 101A the first time, so it's been about 2 months since we played them. But
When's the next scrimmage?
we're working on scheduling that now. We don't have anything
So
set up
stay
yet.
tuned.
Yeah,
Stay
TBA.
tuned. Well, man, is there anything? Where do you see the 508 in the future, man? You think it'll always be a hell let loose, or do you think it's just evolved into an actual social media community, essentially, to where it'll always be a thing?
I mean, I would love for it to be hell let loose as long as possible, because obviously I still love this game. I enjoy playing it. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
I'm not
But eventually,
naive. I
servers
know
fall
that,
out.
yeah, eventually the game's
Servers
going to
die.
lose popularity, and
Hmm.
so if we want to stick around, we're going to have to adjust. And I'm I'm all for keeping this community going. at as long as we do have a game to play. Um, and even if there's not a game to play, if we just if so, at some point it just turns into a community that we play all sorts of games together, but we just keep it up because we're all friends, that's fine too. But the plan would be once Hell Let Loose starts to die, to make a jump to some other game that I imagine hasn't been released yet. Um, but yeah, that's way down the road. I'm still
Yeah,
focusing
yeah,
on
oh
who
yeah,
we're
for
playing
sure.
next.
Yeah, well, I know, but I still gotta ask. I ask
Yeah, I
everybody
got
where they
you.
think it's gonna go.
Yeah, no,
Where
I
do you see
think
yourself in five? Where do you see yourself 5 and 2 years? Do you see yourself
hopefully.
flying plane
Oh
for
God, I
Gridiron?
hope not. If that happens, then God save our souls. Um, no, hopefully I'll still be with Gridiron. Um, I I definitely see myself staying here as long as they'll have me. Whether it's as a flight attendant or in a role in the office, who knows? I definitely want to do the flight attendant gig for a couple years, but I am fortunate because the home office is here, just 20 minutes away from where I live. So if I want to make the jump to something a little more consistent, then I have that opportunity, and it's definitely something that I'm looking at. But right now, I'm just gonna enjoy the flight attendant gig and see where that takes me. And who knows what other doors it could open, because obviously we'll be rubbing shoulders with a lot of interesting people.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It should be an interesting. I'm glad that you finally got that. I remember you just catching wind of it when we did our first recording, and you were super excited, but you couldn't talk much about it.
Yeah, we had the good old NDA.
Right, non-disclosure agreement.
Yep.
Gotta love those.
Yep. Still under it technically, but there's more I'm allowed to talk about now because we're actually certified.
Right. Oh yeah. It's not like I would ever ask you like, so personal shit,
So if
I
you
just
want to
want to
take
be
down a 777, here's what you got to do.
yeah, right. Well, gotta put a disclaimer at the front now, damn
Right.
it. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, man, hey, I appreciate it. I'm glad I could get you on. I know I've been bugging the fuck out of you to get you on here, and it's finally happened. So now if I can get Big Daddy Fink on here, I'll be fucking feeling
Well,
accomplished.
good luck. You might have to slip his
Hey.
kids some sedatives, put him to sleep.
Well, yeah, something. But I told him I would send him enough to get a 12 pack or whatever of his natty daddies if he would fucking get on and talk to me
Then
for a
that
little
that
bit. So we'll
that
see what
should work.
happens.
You'll probably get him.
Dude, you know what's funny is I actually the other day I was thinking about it because Deimos is the one that brought the original idea up to me, but back then we didn't have like the ability to do so, I guess you could say. Now I have the ability to where it's like if like I could catch him while he's playing and just fucking invite him to this,
Yeah,
and while we're playing the game we could talk. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
that'd be
it's a
cool.
whole different ball game now. So
Yeah, like instead of
maybe we'll
just
get him a
the old normal streaming thing, do like a streaming slash
mhm.
interview. That would be actually pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. It would if I could keep him on track, that'd be the problem. We'd
Yeah,
have to run like engineering
and
support or something in the back corner.
not have him getting fucking frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the thing. So man, you got anything you want to say to the group? There's actually quite a bit of guys that listen to it nowadays.
No, I mean I appreciate everyone coming in and listening. I appreciate y'all being a part of
Beach.
the 508. Um, and appreciate y'all sticking around through all the down times, and things are you know just looking up from here. So get ready.
So yeah, you better buckle the fuck up.
Yeah, hold on to your butts.
Alrighty, brother man. I appreciate you. Much love. I'll see you
Yep.
soon, I'm sure.
All right, man. Take it easy.